Hi, everyone.
Brian and Denny here from Spark Rental. So last week, we talked all about real estate contingencies when you make offers, what they are, how they work, why you should be including them in your contract offers. This week, we are back to talking about COVID and the pandemic. I know you guys are sick of hearing about it. We're sick of talking about it. We're sick of hearing about it too. But as this second wave gets worse and continues rising, we wanted to talk about the legal liability that landlords and property managers face, because there have been some lawsuits introduced around the country. We do live in a litigious society here, and landlords in particular are very vulnerable to lawsuits. Not just during the pandemic, but all the time. People love to sue landlords. Yeah, landlords get vilified all the time, and people love to sue them. So, Denny, let's jump right in. And by the way, as you guys join us, let us know where you're joining from. We love to hear that and have a dialogue with you. So send our questions your way. This is broadcast live. So, Denny, what are some of the legal issues that landlords could face due to COVID-19?
Well, I think the biggest thing that any business or anyone faces is because of you, somebody gets it, so to speak. So landlords are going to be around people because you're showing apartments, or you're going to have maintenance technicians go in, there's inspections, whatever other reason there is to be inside the rental unit while another person is there. Those are all kind of, potential liabilities where a tenant could say, I was fine. I stayed in my apartment. I didn't go out. But as soon as this happened, I got COVID. So there's cases surrounding the travel, sector, and there's a ton of cases in employment. So landlords, like Brian said, people like to sue landlords. So we are not, exempt. It's going to hit us. So not to mention common areas. That's a whole other, if you, even if you have like a duplex, you think, oh, I don't manage a large complex with elevators and the whole 9 yards. But if you have a duplex, you still have common areas in that duplex, the hallways and whatnot, laundry room maybe. So there's potential liability there as well. So,
absolutely. So, what can landlords and property managers do to limit their legal liability here to protect themselves from COVID-related lawsuits?
Well, put your beliefs aside. Whether you believe in masks, whether you believe in mask wearing or not, has nothing to do with this. It's protecting yourself. Let's face it. Do you want to get sued? Do you want to lose your property? Your investment. So enforce some of these CDC guidelines to at least show that you're going above and beyond to ensure the safety of your tenants, your maintenance people, whoever. And to do that, you want to, enforce mask wearing, social distancing. If you have common areas, put up, it's a couple, maybe $20-$30, throw up the hand sanitizer stations and make sure that you're filling them. Another thing is for maintenance people, or if you're going to show an apartment, have people fill out a health assessment. There are some places you can't even walk into without them swiping your temperature now, or they're asking, have you been around anyone who has been affected, or so forth and so on. So why not do that yourself to protect yourself in all of this?
Right. And by the way, we do have a free sample health assessment questionnaire that landlords can download and use. This is just a basic form. Think of it more as a sample than anything else, but we've added a link to that in the comments that you can download as well.
And if you're doing this and you're putting it aside and somebody comes back and says to you, well, so-and-so didn't do anything, and you can say, well, I did ask the questions. I did have my mask on or whatever. So you're protecting yourself. You're covering your butt, as we say. Well, it's really CYA, but.
Well, right. So with legal protection, it's worth pointing out that anyone can sue anyone else at any time for any reason.
Absolutely.
So when you are preventing that as a landlord, you're not preventing lawsuits from coming. you are creating a defense that you can take before a judge before anyone ever sues you and say, look, here are all of the things that I did to protect our tenants and our workers and everyone else. So you're trying to build that case preemptively to protect yourself. You can't prevent lawsuits from coming, but you can take the steps to prevent losing lawsuits preemptively.
Definitely. I mean, even with evictions and stuff, you do that. You document everything, and you try to you want to cover yourself so that when you go to court, everything is lined up. And if you don't go out of your way to make sure that you're following your state's guidelines, then you could end up, kind of open and vulnerable to a lawsuit or losing a lawsuit.
Right. Now, what about waivers and having tenants sign waivers? Does that work? I mean, what do landlords need to know about that?
Waivers are just like an extra cover. So they can't hurt, but they probably would help. So it can't, if you ensure that you're doing all these things and you have your tenants or somebody you're showing an apartment or your maintenance man or whoever, if you have them sign a waiver or even put something at this point in new leases, and if you can get current tenants to sign something that protects yourself and says that, if you get COVID, indemnified pretty much. You can't come after me in this type of thing. Now, will it hold up in court? Nobody knows. But there are times where, I recently heard of a case where one of those places where you take your kids to jump on the I've taken my grandkids there, the trampolines, and they were like all over, and there were some kids that got hurt because other kids were being wild, and they tried to sue, but in the very beginning, there was a liability waiver. Well, they still lost, but it still gives a little bit of extra protection because you don't know. It could help you not lose, which is the name of the game.
Right. Every little bit helps to CYA, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Now, can landlords limit their tenants' visitors? Is that within their legal rights? Can they do it? Should they do it? What do landlords need to know about that?
I mean, landlords can definitely limit parties that we've seen it done. I mean, you can't have gatherings of more than whatever in leases so that we don't have loud noises and whatnot. So there is that in a lease that you can definitely use to help. Now, can you say that you can't have any more than 4 people in your home? I don't think. I think that would be challenged. But I think that you can suggest things. And I think the more that you suggest within reason, the more, again, that you're covering yourself. So if you are trying to limit the amount of people in one apartment, then, and they don't listen, and then somebody gets it, it still covers your butt because you tried. You tried.
No, that makes total sense. So, by the way, we added a link in the comments here to a sample COVID waiver that landlords can have their tenants sign.
And you definitely want to have an attorney look at this. But if you want to include it in a lease, it might be we're in a different world now. We all say 2020, but the likelihood is it could go into 2021. And who knows if something like this isn't going to come down the pike again. So why not have something in your leases that's going to protect you just in case?
Absolutely. Well, are there any other ways that landlords can protect themselves from lawsuits or protect their tenants from exposure? Any final thoughts here?
I definitely think that we got to do a couple different things. You don't want to hide your head in the sand. So keep an eye on what's going on, especially your state. New York has got already some cases, or a case that I definitely saw, but I think there's going to be more.
Lawsuits, you mean?
Lawsuits, yes. So you want to make sure that keep an eye on these things because knowledge is power at this point, and you don't want to put your head in the sand. There will be precedents coming up. We're going to see legal precedents coming up out of this in all sectors. So, get knowledgeable on this. Have a plan, definitely, and make sure your plan is used all around, the same for everyone, so that you don't face a discrimination issue either.
Right.
So that's another thing. Put the sanitation things around, be an extra, give some of your tenants some sanitizer to be nice or whatever. It's, the stupid little things like that. Make sure that you know about the privacy laws. You can't divulge if a tenant tells you, unless they say, I don't care, but even then I would be careful. You don't want to say,
you can't share that information.
No, you don't want to say the tenant in 8B has COVID and whatever. So you got to be careful with that too. And, be very careful to keep personal, political, whatever views out of this, because the number one thing is protecting your renters, which is protecting your property.
Right. Absolutely. And we do have a question here from Christina Colin, who asked if we have a link to the news about the New York lawsuit against the landlord, the COVID lawsuit against the landlord in New York.
I will get that for you, Christina. If you could send your email to support@sparkrental.com. It's not a full-blown case yet, but it's a case in the making, and it was basically against the landlord for being negligent in taking precautions. So I will send that to you.
All right. Denny, any final thoughts about how landlords can protect themselves and their properties legally against lawsuits from tenants here?
No, I think just pretty much what we went over. CYA, say it over and over to yourselves.
That's right. All right. Well, Denny, thanks for sharing that with us today. And scary times. Stay safe, everyone.
Absolutely.
And send us your tip or your comments for what you want to hear about next Tuesday. Try to talk about what is most important to you as a real estate investor, as a landlord. Have a great week.
See you later, everyone.